What is safety when you do outdoor trips? Maybe it's a short trip, maybe it's a long trip, I don't know. I'm talking about the safety I'm thinking about when I do the longer trip. My name is Matti. I'm working as a dog musher and nature guide up in northern Sweden. We do dog sled tours, canoe tours, packraft tours and hiking tours and all that thing. Right now when I'm recording this video, I'm on my way with 4 clients from Jokkmokk in the east through the forest landscape up towards the mountain. We will end 6 days later in Saltolukta mountain lodge. We have 29 dogs with us, so we're actually doing dog sledding as you see. So this is just a part of my life. In this video I will talk about safety. I will try to give you a glimpse of what I'm thinking about when I'm planning a tour and what I'm doing actually when I'm working out here. Probably there is a lot of things to add to this video, so feel free, leave a comment down below, because I think I can't cover the whole thing. And it's always nice to see what you're thinking about this subject or the videos we make. The first thing with making a tour safe is the planning. What kind of distance are you going to do? Or you follow a trail? Is there any difficulties along the trail? And so on. If you want to make it safe, you should not overestimate your own capacity. And you should always be prepared and have a plan A, plan B and a plan C or whatever. If you have to force yourself to stay at plan A, you sometimes push yourself into difficulties that you don't want to have. To have an open mind and really value the situation all the time and be able to follow plan B, plan C, that's super important. So when you're planning the tour, you're looking at the distance you plan to do and what options you have. Is there any evacuate routes? Is there any options to turn around if the weather changes? Or what is your options? The weather can stop you, suddenly you get ill, suddenly something happened in the group, or I don't know. A lot of things happen out here and you must follow what's happening. Don't work against the nature. So now we are on the main trail and soon we're turning into the cabin. So we see how the leader dogs are doing their job. Ja. Höger! Hög! Hög! Vänster! Hög! They're actually doing quite okay. Now we're going to park them between the trees. Look here. Vänster! Even that works. So now we're staying in a cabin here on an island, and there is no other people in the surrounding. What I think is super important when you do that is that you're thinking about the fire. What happens if the cabin burns down or if it starts burning in the cabin? I usually bring a small fire alarm that I switch on when I'm in cabins like this. I do it as, even if there is a fire alarm in this cabin, I have my own also. I maybe not do it if I'm traveling alone, but now when I'm out here with customers, I also do. I usually do that. During the night, you look so nothing can fall down on the stove. You check, so yeah, switch off the gas, so the main gas is switched off, so you don't have a gas leak into the cabin during the night, because the stoves are usually gas. That's the routine things I always do when I'm like this. And I'm also very careful with candles and switch them out before I go to bed, so I have no possibility to fall to sleep while I have a candle burning. But that's how I do it. Now it's time for dinner. Eating is important. Now we're on the way again, and we continue towards Orenjarka mountain lodge. I'm looking forward to a dinner in the restaurant over there. That will be great. When we're talking about safety out here, we also had to talk about calculating the risk. So for me, example, I choose to run 8 dogs instead of 14. I could easily have 14 dogs in my team, and that's kind of fun to drive a big team also. When things goes wrong, or actually the chance that things goes wrong increase if you have more power in front of the sled. That's the same if you do downhill skiing. It's fun to go fast, but if you crash harder. And yeah, that's not always so fun. I'm looking at the activity I'm doing. If I'm paddling, for example, how big is the waves? How big waves can I handle? What happens if I flip the canoe? Is the risk big that I flip the canoe? And so on. And then I always try to not living on the edge. You know, living on the edge sounds cool. When you're standing on the edge, you're not cool. That's actually quite scary and not a nice situation at all. Stay far away from the edge, because sooner or later you will anyway end up on the edge, and that's not the place where you want to be. So plan your activity, stay safe, and don't overestimate what you actually can do, and work with these plans in the head all the time. That's super important. And then we have the weather. A lot of the activities we're doing out here, can be quite exposed to different kind of weather. If you are in the Arctic, snowstorm, low temperature, rain, hard wind, you know, all these things, they can put you in a difficult situation. If you do canoeing, you don't want waves. If you do hiking and you have to do river crossings, you don't want that type of weather that gives you high water, flooding rivers, you know. If I had reception from my mobile phone, I look at the weather forecast. I use a website called yr.no. It's a Norwegian weather forecast. I have learned very much how that works, so I could make my conclusions. Anyway, I could read it and I know what's going to happen more or less. If I'm off grid, then I use my satellite phone. I call Tostina and get the weather forecast from her, because especially the tours like this, you are so dependent on different kind of weather. There exist a lot of other things like Garmin in Reach and all that, and they give you weather forecast if you have that kind of prenumeration, or I don't know. Stanna. So as you see, it starts snowing again, and we're coming closer and closer to Orjanjarka. The trail is amazing here. It's really good. Tor Henrik, a friend to me in Orjanjarka, just groomed it yesterday, so it's very good. Thank you, Tor Henrik. And when we're talking about the weather, you should think about what kind of different terrain are you going through. So like here, for example, we have been through the forest that have just been snowing. Right now we're crossing a lake that is 40k, 30k long, and here in the middle of the lake there is much more windy. It's still not windy, but what happens when you pass over mountains, when you cross big lakes and you have wind? Will you have a lot of wind drift, and will the visibility be bad? So you had to look at the map, and you had to combine the map with the weather forecast, and then you might made a conclusion how will the situation be. Sometimes you can't cross high mountains because it's too bad weather actually, or you think that it will be too bad, and then you had to wait and be what we call weather stocked, or väderfast. Weather stocked. You can't go because the weather make you staying at one place. Or you had to find another route, plan B, plan C, plan D, as we talked about earlier in this video. Anyway, as you see now, it is quite grayish behind me. Just in front of me now, we have Orjanjarka Mountain Lodge. We will have a cabin there, we will have floor heating, we will have dinner in the restaurant, and we will have a great time and very nice sleep tonight. We can dry out all our stuff that have been moistury and wet, and yeah, Orjanjarka, here we come. Yeah. So Orjanjarka Mountain Lodge. Now we have just have our dinner in the restaurant. Reindeer stew and also some vanilla ice cream and warm cloudberry jam. Food is super important for safety, I think so. Anyway, now I'm heading back towards the cabin, my guest already there, and I think it's time for sleeping bag right now. This Orjanjarka Mountain Lodge, they have several cabins with shower, they have sauna, the restaurant with good food, everything you need for good recover. If you travel around in this area, visit Orjanjarka. I can highly recommend them, and the people here, they are super nice, so go for Orjanjarka. This is our cabin tonight. So today we left Orjanjarka and we crossing Sagat Lake, heading towards Jokkmokk. And then we are on the Kungsleden, and we follow Kungsleden to the north towards Saltolukta. We are doing fine. It's super warm. It's kind of warm for the dogs also, and it's a little bit slow. But we make progress. When we talk about safety, we had to talk about decision. During a tour out here, it's a lot of decisions that you had to make. Is the ice good enough? Will the snowstorm be too bad? How far should I go? It's a lot of things you had to decide about. The best way to make good decision is not to be stressed, afraid, or have pushed yourself too hard. Because when you have done that, you start making less good decisions. One thing I'm thinking about is how much food have you been eating during the last time? Is your blood sugar energy level good? Are you thirsty, dehydrated, and things like that? So food is actually a really important part of your safety. It's very easy when you're out like this, especially in bad weather, that you think, I don't want to stop. I don't want to take my bottle out of my backpack. I don't want to take my sandwich. I can go a little bit further on and eat later. I'm not hungry. Don't do that. Stop and eat. Make a schedule, and when it's worse weather, when it's bad weather, then it's super important that you stay on the schedule, that you eat a lot. You have snacks in your pocket and you have a bottle with hot tea or coffee or whatever you want. Eat and drink a lot. We're just doing some of this uphill from Jokkmokk, and it's kind of running and kicking and kind of workout. And we just had the coffee break just before this, and that's good because then we're full of energy when we start with uphill. So you should plan your food intake. It's also super warm, both for me and for the dogs. Oh, shit. Now we're coming closer and closer to the porter cabin, and as you see here, it's really nice old spruce forest, and we are surrounded with the mountains on both sides actually. This cabin is on a small half island in the middle of a lake.
Ja.
So the good thing with peeing, the good thing when you're peeing in wintertime is that you can pee in the snow. You look at the color. If the snow turns dark yellow, then you need to drink more. If the snow is very light yellow or whitish, you are in a good balance. I was drinking a little bit too much yesterday, so I've already been out 3 times now. That's a little bit too much for me, 3 times peeing in one night. That was maybe a little bit more information than you asked for. Anyway, now I'm going back to bed. Now we're coming closer and closer to Axel cabin where we're going to spend our night.
Guten Appetit.
Ein guten.
Guten.
I believe that was the first day.
Yeah.
With the Tuesday. And now it's...
You remember the first day that we met a guy with a dog sled?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's the first day. It feels like so long time ago.
Yeah.
That's true, yeah.
And the lunch with the
In the hut.
with the river,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
with the hot sandwiches.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So right now we're crossing the mountain from Sitojaur to Saltolukta, and we will very soon be at our finish point. So there is one more thing I want to talk about when we talk about safety, and that is communication. You should interact with people you meet, communicate. Ask about the trail if you want to know something. Ask about the weather forecast if they know more than you. Ice condition, whatever, I don't know what you need to know. It's also good to check if they need help, or you can ask for help if you need help. You know, there's few things that make people actually happy, and one of the things that really make you happy is helping. If you can help someone, it feels so great. And help without asking for something in return. Very important. But when we talk about communication, we also had to talk about devices I use for communicate. One of them is my normal GSM telephone, mobile phone, my smartphone. With that I can usually get weather forecast, I can keep in touch with family, friends, and it's just a very good communication thing. A lot of areas here don't have reception for GSM telephone, and then I use a satellite phone. I use a system called Iridium up here in the north. That's really good. It's maybe a little bit expensive, I don't know, but when you need it, it's really good. You can rent them from up here, you can rent them from our colleagues that called the Laponia Adventure, for example, or you can rent them straight from the telephone company probably. If you have a satellite phone, you can call and get the weather forecast. Now it's windy again for the microphone. I think it makes difference if you can talk with a doctor if you have a problem, then, because usually you don't need help, you need advice, and the telephone, then you can double way communicate. The other thing we use is PBL or PLB, I'd never remember. I put a link somewhere. It's a personal location thing. It's like emergency button. You push a button and it sends signal somewhere and you get help. And that works global, and they cost like 300-400 euro, and the battery is for 10 years or something like that. That's a very cheap thing for staying safe. So if you are in real serious trouble, you just push the button. Similar things to this PBL, and one of them is InReach, Garmin InReach or something, and small other device. But they are usually a little bit expensive to buy, and then you also had to pay a monthly fee for them. And most of them have an emergency button, and then you can send SMS with them or get weather forecast. So they are kind of good probably. People who use them like them. I prefer a satellite phone, as I told you before. There's another thing that called Spot, but this Spot, I think they have issues. I've heard stories about people that have sent in message with the Spot, but yeah, they don't work 100%. But I don't know, so maybe you know. What are you using and why are you using? Write in the comments, because I always looking for better stuff. And then we have another thing, and that's the emergency telephone, or actually it's called help telephone. They exist in cabins, in wind shelters, and so on. These help telephones are help telephones. It's like a radio, and it connects you with the Swedish police, and you can ask them for help, and you can ask them for advice, and you can ask them for service like, please can you call my mother, I think she's worried, I'm 3 days late, and so on. Yeah, you get it. So don't hesitate to use them. Of course it's not something you should use for calling if it's not necessary, but it's a help and not emergency telephone. There is some more things I want to add to this video about safety gear. I always bring a warm sleeping bag. A good sleeping bag. If I end up in a bad place, if I had to stop on the trail, if I hurt myself, it's super important that you can stay warm. I also bring a first aid bag, and I already made a video about what's in my first aid bag. And my first aid bag, and this one I have made a special video about, and I add things into this that I know how to use. I don't just buy it and keep it like it is when I bought it. So add what you need into it, what you think you need into it. And it's kind of useless to bring things that you don't know how to use. So we put a link somewhere to that or down in the description so you can check out what I'm bringing. But it's very important that you're prepared if someone gets allergic reaction or if something like that happened on the trail. So the first aid equipment or the first aid bag is really important. And then I also bring some communication equipment, and I talked about that earlier in the video. And of course, if I travel on weak ice, I bring these ice picks, and I also bring a throwing line. But that's usually later in the season when I need this stuff. Yes, now I'm arrived to Saltolukta, and I want to say thank you to all of you who follow this channel. It's super nice that you're there, and I really hope I can bring some value with this video to you. If you like this video and you give thumbs up or subscribe, then YouTube help you to find similar channels and similar content like this, and you also get our content in your feed. So subscribing to a channel or giving thumbs up and leaving a comment shows what kind of content you want. And of course, we are super happy if you leave comments and everything like that. Thank you to Serkan, Iris, Till and Billy who joined this tour. It's super nice to meet people, travel along the trail together with people. Some of them, Billy, had been on tours before, but Serkan and Till and Iris was new people to learn to know, and I had a great week out here. I hope I see you again. And now, time to continue with the next week tour. See you next video. Ciao!